with more on what the Kremlin is saying. Yet another failure, another diplomatic failure with civilians and ordinary Syrians once again caught in the middle. What is being said in Moscow about this?
Yeah, another instance, Hala, where the two sides have only been able to agree to keep talking and really haven't achieved very much. Remember, they wanted to actually get a ceasefire going during the G20, but it seemed earlier today and yesterday both sides were saying, look, it's just not coming together. And now they're saying maybe they can reach something in the next couple of days. It was interesting because Vladimir Putin, who had a press availability shortly after President Obama, painted, I would say, a more positive picture of the interaction that the two had. He said that the two were both clear and understood each other's mutual problems, the challenges that they faced on each side. He says that he believes that some sort of cessation of hostility or some sort of agreement over Syria can be achieved within the next couple of days. Let's listen into what he had to say.
It seems premature for me to talk about any details of our agreements on Syria, but I hope very much that in case the agreements are reached, and I have grounds to believe that they will be reached in the nearest few days, we can say that our joint work with the United States in fighting terrorist organizations, including the ones in Syria, would be significantly improved and intensified.
The Russian state-run news agency TASS has since reported that the Russians believe that there could be another meeting between U.S. Secretary of State Kerry and the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in the next couple of days. And the Russians, again, are saying they're optimistic that some sort of agreement can be reached. But as President Obama noted, there are still those issues of trust between the two sides, especially with the U.S. when it comes to civilian casualties in Russia's air campaign in Syria. Hala.
And just so we're clear, what are they discussing here? A very short ceasefire, right? That's what they're not even able to achieve meeting face-to-face on the sidelines of the G20.
Well, they've achieved some local ceasefires in Syria in the past, but those obviously were always very short-lived. What they're talking about now is some sort of longer-term and wider ceasefire, but also cooperation, for instance, in combating groups like al-Nusra, or the group that used to be known as Jabhat al-Nusra, and ISIS. That there's a big problem between Russia and the U.S. on that front, where the Russians are saying, look, we think that a lot of the groups on the ground, a lot of the rebel groups are actually affiliated with al-Qaeda, with Jabhat al-Nusra, and therefore many of them should be bombed by the U.S. and by Russia, whereas the U.S. is saying, look, there's a lot of groups that are actually vetted by us that Russia is bombing, and we want that to stop. So it's very difficult for them to find some sort of mutual understanding. And then you have the issue, for instance, in Aleppo, which, Hala, of course, is now encircled again by regime forces, is trying to get humanitarian corridors into that, where the Russians are saying maybe they could secure those humanitarian corridors. The U.S. doesn't really trust the Russians to do that. So there's still a variety of issues that are open, both in the terms of fighting what Obama calls the common enemies, but also, of course, relieving the Syrian population, which should, of course, be first and foremost for both of these nations.